Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvadha Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We can now look at it again with a view to revising the concept of manas, buddhi, chittam and ahamkara. In English, it's mind, intellect, memory and ego. Remember, these four were produced by a mixing of the sattvic aspect of the five elements in their subtle form. So we looked at what was a definition of the term vritti. Right? I introduced the term vritti, which translates into English as a cognition or thought. The two words, actually, if you look at the English definition, cognition is more often used when one perceives something. You look at a perceptual object, you call it cognition, and thought is something that you recollect. Something that is not directly in front of you. So this is the English usage of the word cognition and thought. But in Sanskritam and in Vedanta, vritti actually covers both. Vedanta says that both are vrittis. A cognition is also a vritti and a thought is also a vritti. There's no difference between the two. It's just that the mode in which they are formed is different, as we shall see. So the word vritti can be used in Vedanta to refer to both cognition as well as thought. Okay? So we shall look at how a vritti typically forms. This is basically a revision of what was discussed last week. Okay? First, let's handle the direct perceptual vritti, a vritti that arises from the apprehension of an object directly in front of you. So the flow will be first that the sense organs provide the info of the external object that's external to you. It provides the sense. And here, if it's a visual object, the eyes is providing the info. If it is the ears, it's a sound object, the ears are providing the info. It is an object pertaining to your taste, your tongue will be providing the info. And there's something pertaining to the sense of touch, the skin is providing the info. And there's something pertaining to it's a smell object, it's the noses that are providing the info. Then what happens? The vritti is actually the name and form of that object that is superimposed on consciousness. This is called a vritti. An example will be how we superimpose name and form onto water, on water, and we call it wave, or we can call it tsunami or wavelet. So this is an example to illustrate that vritti is actually nothing but consciousness, just that it is qualified by a name and form. Name and form includes color, shape, what have you. Name is how the society or how people see it. Okay. So consciousness is therefore Satyam and vritti is Mithya. Okay, later we'll revise once again in case you've forgotten the relationship, the definitions and the definitions of what is Satyam and Mithya. We'll do a revision of that later. But for now, based on this, you can see that consciousness is Satyam, Vritti is Mithya. In other words, consciousness limited or qualified by name and form is Vritti. Okay, moving forward. So when I see a flower, there is a flower Vritti. This arises from a perceptual perception of what I see in front of me. When I recollect a dog I saw yesterday, there is a dog Vritti. So in English, typically they will call this, they will refer to this as a cognition and this as a thought, right? They will refer in English usage, common usage of the word cognition and thought. They will refer to this as cognition popularly and this as a thought. But in Vedanta, both are vrittis, okay? Whether it's a perceptual object that you see immediately or an object that you recollect from having seen yesterday. This is a flower vritti of a flower in front of me. This is a dog vritti of a dog that I saw yesterday. Okay? Now, the locale of the vrittis is referred to as the mind. So there is no physical location per se. By virtue of the fact that vrittis occur, that place where vrittis occur is popularly called as mind. Okay? So whenever when we use the word mind to say that there are thoughts in my mind, actually the word mind is not a physical location. It's just a locale where vrittis are present. To give an example, if you have, say, you go to, is it East Coast Park or somewhere, they have this thing called a cyclist corner. What is a cyclist corner? Is it something special? No. It gets its name simply because cyclists congregate there. There's nothing unique about the place. It's called a cyclist corner because cyclists gather there. So the same way, mind is basically a place where there is vrittis. And so whenever they say mind, it's basically where there is a vritti. That's called mind. Okay? It's a locale of vrittis. So in Tattva Bodha, so the emotive and the most common vrittis that we encounter is what we call as manas. An emotional vritti is called a manas, or doubt, vritti pertaining to doubt. A deterministic vritti, where there is ascertainment, it's called buddhi. A vritti where you recollect, like we saw about the dog earlier, that is called chitta. But you need to note that for those of you, especially for those of you who study other Vedanta texts, the three terms are used interchangeably. So you need to look at the context in which it is used. Sometimes they may use buddhi to refer to all the three. Sometimes they may use the word chittam to refer to all three, or they may use manas to refer to all three. Okay, so the context of usage is very careful. It's very specific, and you got to be cautious about that. Okay. Hence, thoughts and experiences. Some of you asked the question last week about experience. So thoughts and experiences are vrittis in the mind. That's why I put the mind in inverted commas because of this. Okay, so it's not a physical location. It's just vrittis. Place where vrittis occurs is called mind. Hence, thoughts and experiences are vrittis in the mind. Okay, so this was the first slide. Now, the second slide is about Ahamkara. Okay, it's about Ahamkara. Ahamkara is also a vritti, but it's a special type of vritti, and the English translation of it is called I thought. Some Vedanta texts also refer to Ahamkara as Aham vritti. I is Aham, thought is vritti. So Aham vritti, I thought. So Ahamkara, Aham vritti, I thought all refers to the same thing. And what is this I thought? You see, every individual has a basic concept about himself. And I would ask you, who are you? You will say, I'm so and so. I've got a name, right? A name, so and so son or daughter. All this arises from your sense of body, right? Because that body was given to birth by so and so. So you become so and so son or daughter, correct? Then sometimes it may be about your intelligence, your learning, your achievements, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm a physiotherapist, whatever, achievement, my learning, I'm a PhD, I've got a bachelor's, your intelligence, your status, your job titles. So your perception of yourself, your individuality is defined by this aham vritti today. Okay, and all this your body, your intelligence, your learning, and all these things, these form the basis for your Aham-vritti. Your Ahamkara is defined based on these elements and much more. Actually, this is just a limited list. There are actually a lot more of this. Okay. Now, then what happens? Now, this Aham-vritti is a vritti that owns up every other vritti continuously as the other vrittis are formed. So if you go back to the other example, when you see a flower, the Aham-vritti comes up and say, oh, this is a particular flower out there. Or you see a car there, oh, this is a car. The implication there, it is not my car. Then you see another car, oh, that is my car. See? So the vritti continues, every vritti that comes in through your, either through your sense organs or through your manas, buddhi or chittam, is owned up by this Aham-vritti. It is the subject that owns up the objects as they are perceived and remembered. As they are perceived or remembered. Even when you remember, the subject owns up. When you perceive, the subject owns up. Owning up means, what do I mean by owning up? Owning up means I identify. I identify with it. Correct? When I see a car in the say a basement car park, a car that is smashed up. I see a smashed car, that's the first perception I get. Then the Aham-vritti will come and say, that is not my car. You know, it makes a reference. Every owning up is always in relation to the subject. It means it is something other than me. That is how you create this world of duality. The I-vritti constantly owns up everything either as mine or I or that. You all remember in the earlier class when we did the analysis, the microcosmic analysis, I spoke about Aham and Idam. This is where the Aham-vritti does the job of referring to everything as either Aham or Idam. Either either this or that. Aham means it's either I or mine. Idam means not mine, not I. Okay? So this is how this world of duality of subject owning up the object, it takes place all the time continuously without even your knowledge. This creates the subject-object division in the world of duality. So when I'm writing, the Ahamkara, Aham-vritti is identified with the vritti of writing. I'm a man. I've identified with my body. I'm sad. What? I've identified with the sad thought that has come in my head. This continual identification is what creates the world that we live in. Okay? Hence the notion of I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, and much more. This is mine, this is not mine. Huh? This is good, this is bad. All the judgments, everything comes from this Aham-vritti. Okay? But the primary notion is that I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. Okay? So by continuously identifying, owning up with the changing experiences vritti, the Ahamkara gets affected by, we get affected actually. We actually, the Ahamkara, because of its identification, we get affected by these situations, all the while erroneously taking Ahamkara to be our true self, which is not the case. Because Ahamkara is not your true self. Ahamkara is just another vritti, as I said, a special type of vritti. Okay? Any questions before I go on to the today's session? This is all revision from last week's session. Okay? Any questions? No questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How can I relate this to Stula Sarira, Sukshma Sarira, and Karana Sarira?
Okay.
So if,
Yeah.
So,
okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Remember this is related to Sukshma Sharira. The short answer. How? Can you remember the definition of the Sukshma Sharira when we did the microcosmic analysis? It comprises 19 elements, correct?
Yes.
The 19 elements were the 5 sensory organs, the jnanendriyas, the 5 karmendriyas, right? Pancha pranas, that means now 15 already, right?
Yes.
15 plus the 4 to make up 19. What is the 4? Manas, buddhi, chitta and ahamkara. So the short answer is, this is the what body? Subtle body.
Subtle body.
Subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. Okay? Sukshma Sharira identifies with the Stula Sharira and takes the Stula Sharira to be itself. Not realizing that one day Stula Sharira going to go, Sukshma Sharira going to go to another loka. This is fundamental problem. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So we come to today's session. I want to first, I'm going to revise Satyam and Mithya. Okay? Satyam and Mithya is a very important concept. And from some of the questions that came last week, it's okay. From some of the questions that came last week, I could sense that some of you have forgotten Satyam and Mithya, and some of you have joined the class later after I had done Satyam and Mithya. So I thought in the interest of all that, it's good that I revise it. Because Satyam and Mithya was done when we were having classes in Hindu Center, before we went on Zoom. Okay? So we'll quick revision. For those of you who are very crystal clear with Satyam Mithya, you know it at the back of your palm, just bear with me. Okay? All non-substantial names and forms which have only a dependent existence is called Mithya. Non-substantial name and form. Substantial comes from the word substance. That means a non-substantial name and form. For example, let me see. Shirt is a non-substantial name because shirt by itself is not a substance. Thread is you can say thread is a substantial name. Okay, shirt is a non-substantial name. Okay, so the point I'm trying to say here is that all non-substantial names and forms which have only a dependent existence are called Mithya. That means their existence is dependent on something else. What is that? The substance on which the name and form depends is called Satyam. Example, clay is Satyam, pot is Mithya. Gold is Satyam, necklace is Mithya. Water is Satyam, wave is Mithya. The names and forms are superimposed on the Satyam. Name and form cannot exist separate from the Satyam. Remove the Satyam and the Mithya entity ceases to exist. These are things which these points you should be crystal clear about them. Okay? You cannot have a confusion of Satyam and Mithya. You cannot have it. Okay? You must be crystal clear about that. Names and forms are superimposed on the Satyam. Okay? And the name and form cannot exist separately from the Satyam. Remove the latter and Mithya ceases to exist. So name and form belongs only to the Mithya. There's a H missing here. Name and form belong only to the Mithya. Satyam is unaffected by it. Okay? Example of this would be like a pot and clay. I can call it pot, I can call it whatever name I want. The clay is not affected by it. Okay? Mithya cannot exist without Satyam, but Satyam can exist without Mithya. Pot cannot exist without clay, but clay can exist without the pot. Mithya entity is actually the Satyam, limited or qualified by the name and form. Bangle is gold qualified by name and form. Pot is clay qualified by name and form. Wave is water qualified by name and form. So when I said Vritti is Mithya and consciousness is Satyam, It means vritti is consciousness qualified by name and form. Okay? This you have to be very clear. And Upanishads say, the Shastras, Vedas say, ultimate Satyam is consciousness alone. Everything else is Mithya, having its dependence on consciousness and consciousness alone. This is what the Upanishads say. Okay? Any questions? Especially for those who are not clear about Satyam and Mithya. You need to clarify your doubts at this point in time.
Very quickly, Ravi.
Yeah.
So, gold, clay, and water are also Mithya, right?
Let me find you first. Wait, I'm unable. Okay. Yeah, sorry, repeat the question, sorry. Gold, clay, and
water is also Mithya.
Gold, clay, and water are Mithya in relation to something else, yes. Correct.
In relation to consciousness.
Correct.
They are Vritti. They are Vritti.
Correct. Correct? Sorry? What do you say again?
They are Vritti.
No, they are Vritti as perceived by you. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. Yes, yes. Yeah. This example has its limitations. Huh? I mean, I'm using this today, but everything can have a further substance that underlies it. Huh?
Correct.
So going forward, I put this diagram. Take a look at it, especially for those of you who are still not clear about Satyam and Mithya. Take note that the difference is only in name and form. I want you to absorb this concept very, very clearly, because the next slide, if you don't understand this, if you're not sure and you're not thoroughly assimilated this diagram, you're going to be confused by the next diagram. The next diagram is going to be very, very, very heavy. So if any questions, please ask at this point. Water, okay, let's assume this is a water where there's no fish and no life forms. Just water and water alone. You can have a huge wave, you can have a small wave, you can have a wavelet, you can have something as big as a tsunami. They only differ in name and form. They are names and forms superimposed on water. Are they separate from water? Is tsunami one and water another? The answer is no. Okay? What tsunami is water qualified by name and form. So all these definitions that we saw here will fit this. Okay? These are the mithyas. Water is the Satyam. Okay? So this is the diagrammatic representation of all these bullets. So except maybe for the last one, all the other bullets, you can find its manifestation in this diagram. Yeah, Sada.
Ravi, when water changes to water vapor, is it still then treated as mithya because it has undergone a complete change?
Yeah. It wouldn't fit this example then.
It won't fit this example. Yeah. So
I'm sticking to the scenario where I have a water that doesn't vaporize.
So which means I can still identify with its essential what do you call characteristics?
Characteristics, yes. So now the next slide is the one that, so the next slide has to be read remembering this slide. Unfortunately, I don't have space to put two slides side by side, but the next slide has to be remembered or read remembering this slide. Okay, so take a good look at this slide before I switch over to the next slide. This is the next slide. Let me quickly walk you through. Remember, it has to be read with respect to the earlier side. This is the data is Jiva and Brahman. Brahman consciousness is the big circle. Brahman consciousness manifests the 6 higher subtle worlds. And the 7th world is, of course, Bhuloka, earth, which comprises mountains and rivers. He then manifests not in that order, but I'm just for ease of saying, I'm saying. Then comes the 7 lower subtle worlds. So altogether you've got 14 lokas here. Brahman manifests time, Brahman manifests space. Notice the choice of my words. I didn't say create, I say manifest. This is because of the earlier slide. Okay. Brahman manifests the 14 worlds, Brahman manifests time, Brahman manifests space, and Brahman manifests all the jivas. What is a jiva? This is one subtle body, another subtle body. What is subtle body? Remember, I just mentioned earlier to Madiji's question. Subtle body comprises the 19 components, which are here, in case you've forgotten what is subtle body. But what's interesting here, you need to know, I did not draw the subtle body inside the gross body. The gross body actually exists within the subtle body, so to speak. The gross body is pervaded by the subtle body because it is subtle. We normally think that the soul is inside the physical gross body, but that is not the case. The subtle body, the gross body exists in the subtle body. That is why your body is an object of your cognition. That is why your body is a cognition in your mind. And when you go to deep sleep, there is no body. Okay? So this diagram is important. You don't draw it the other way around. The subtle body, the gross body is within the subtle body. Or to put it more accurately, the gross body is pervaded by the subtle body. And let me finish it up. Yeah, okay. So all the multitude of jivas that are created, this is Jiva 1 with its own subtle body and gross body. This is Jiva 2 with its own subtle body and gross body. So you have got the microcosmic analysis that we did in the first part of Tattva Bodha here. And you got the macrocosmic analysis that we did in the later part of Tattva Bodha. You've got the 5 elements here in their grossified form, and you have them in their subtle form in Brahman in consciousness. Everything that is studied in Tattva Bodha is actually somehow or other represented in this chart.
Quick clarification, this along with the Sthula Sharira, this therefore then becomes 24 components, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So 19 plus 5.
Yeah.
19 plus 5, 24. Yeah. What is the difficulty? Any difficulty relating to anything?
Ravi, this is Madhi here again.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to when you did the last time also, Karana Sharira, where does it fit into this? Or it's
I was waiting for somebody to ask this question. Never mind. So you get 10 marks. Okay. Where is Karana Sharira? Because there's Sthula Sharira, there's Sukshma Sharira. Where's Karana Sharira? Okay. This diagram is the manifestation of Brahman as Jagat and as Jagat, creation. Karana Sharira is the unmanifested state. Karana Sharira is the unmanifested state. So, whenever, and remember the definition of Karana Sharira. Karana Sharira, the causal body, is that which is responsible for the subtle body and the gross body. It's the karanam, it's the cause. Something cannot be a cause and then after it disappear. No? That means, because if the cause disappears, the effect will also disappear. Okay? So when something is a cause, the cause is always there as long as the effect is there. Okay? So, because they say subtle body and gross body are the effects of the karana sharira. If you remember the definition, they say the two bodies is that it's the karanam for the other two bodies. Karana sharira, causal body, is the cause for the other two bodies, namely the gross body and the subtle body. So if that is the cause, wherever there is the subtle body and the gross body, the causal body is implied. It's implied that it is there. So at any one time, if you're living in the gross universe on gross earth, a person has actually got the gross body, subtle body, and the causal body. It's there by implication. Because without the causal body, these two can't exist. And when a person dies, the gross body is taken away, it's burnt, buried, whatever. Then his spirit is present just with the subtle body. But there again, the causal body is still present by implication. So at any one point in time in the manifested universe, the jiva is either with the gross, subtle and causal body, or when he's dead, he's existing as a subtle body and the causal body. Okay? The only time when the causal body is by itself, all alone, without the subtle and the gross, is when the entire Jagat has been withdrawn. An entire Jagat is in the unmanifested state. That time, all the Panchabhutas, nothing exists. Everything is in the unmanifested state as one single mass. That is the only time the Karana Sharira is by itself alone. But this representation is the representation not of the unmanifested state, but the manifested state. So here, the causal body will be present by implication in either a subtle body or gross body. Have I answered to your question, Madhiji?
Yes, so if when a person dies, as you move on to the next life, the subtle body and the karana sharira moves along.
Yes.
So at some point, if this whole world is gone, only the karana sharira is there. When it's re-manifested again, then the karana sharira gives life to subtle and the gross body.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Tanuja, you had a question? Tanuja?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so just now you said that the only time the karana sharira is without the subtle body is when the whole jagat, like the whole Brahman is in the unmanifested state, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so but what about when someone has achieved the enlightenment? Doesn't he also then he stops identifying with his karma? He only identifies as Atman. Then wouldn't the subtle body also disappear then?
Causal body is also gone.
Yeah.
So causal body is also gone then.
Yeah. So when not just when it's unmanifested, no, then also
Yes.
when they.
But there's no causal body, no subtle, no causal.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, a causal cannot be there on its own in a manifested universe, because for a jnani, even the causal body is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that. Okay.
Gone as in negated, dissolved. Yeah. So there's never a state other than the unmanifested state in a manifested universe. You will never have a case where the causal body exists on its own.
Yeah.
It can't.
And the karana sharira can exist on its own, right? Because they are already
Karana, causal body. Karana sharira is causal body.
Yeah. The causal can exist, right? Once they become a jnani, then both of those are dropped. Then whether the universe is in unmanifested or manifested, they will exist as causal bodies.
There is no existence. The wave has merged back into the water. There's no existence anymore. There's no individual. Yeah.
Okay.
Karana sharira is the definition of is the most primitive definition of your individuality. A jnani loses that. And when loses that, there is no individuality left. The wave has gone back into the water. It's undifferentiated there already. Okay.
Understood.
Somebody else had a question. Yeah, Chitra, you had a question.
Yeah, Ravi, you just said, right, when someone dies, they shed their gross body, right?
Yeah.
But the subtle body is still there.
Yeah.
But then when the jiva goes into another body, does that subtle body still exist?
Jiva, when you say jiva means what?
Well, no, maybe not jiva. When I don't know, Atman is it? Goes into takes on another birth, say for instance, and enters another body. Does the subtle body still exist?
Subtle body is the one that goes and takes another birth.
Oh, it's the subtle body that goes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Subtle body is the one when the gross body, when a person dies, the subtle body leaves the gross body. That's why the pranas. Remember that you look at the anatomy of the subtle body. It's got the pancha pranas are there. So when the subtle body leaves, the pranas are gone. Prana is gone. Gross body is gone. And they say the pranas don't leave immediately when a person dies. It takes about 3-4 days. So actually that's why they keep the dead body, because the pranas don't immediately leave. They leave in phases, according to some of the mystics I've heard. So that's why you need to do all the prayers, and they say that sometimes the so-called Jiva is still wandering around, because the pranas don't all leave at one shot. They leave in installments, like I may use the word.
Okay.
So they gradually, and at some point, they are all gone. That's when you go and burn the body or destroy the body. But even if you destroy it early, doesn't matter. The prana will still leave at some point. And then the pranas are constituents of the subtle body. So the subtle body will go to another loka, where it's supposed to enjoy its karma pala, or it can even take on a birth immediately in another gross body and another womb. Yeah. So subtle body is the one that transmigrates.
Okay. Sorry, Ravi, another maybe a bit silly to ask, but it's been on my mind. It's generally said that when you die and you go wherever you go, you see all your ancestors, etc., etc. How come they are all still there? The cause, not the causal body.
Yeah, I understand.
The body
Subtle
should
body,
have gone.
understand.
Yeah,
They would have been born as somebody else, somewhere else, right?
Terminologies. Yeah, they say they are still there. You mean they all haven't gone back into another body? So many
Good question.
terminology here. I don't know how to deal with it.
I used to wonder as well. I used to wonder because they could have been born somewhere else,
Yeah.
But I've read it many places in many of the spiritual, even the Western spiritual books and those spiritual scientists. Many of them say, and those people go for near-death experiences. They do say that they say all the ancestors, but we don't know who are the all, and we don't know, what's the magnitude, whether is it the same for every one of us, or is it vary, or does it differ from people to people? Yeah. So I know logically it doesn't make sense because they would have had their own journey, but there could be some who could still be living on in other lokas, going through experiences. There could be. You can't rule it out. You can't say that everybody has been reborn and gone off somewhere. There could still be some, and they could be the ones receiving you and all that. That I've heard that in many places. They say your ancestors come to receive you and all that.
Yes.
I've heard that many times. Yeah.
Okay.
So there could be an element of truth in that, but I don't have an answer to your question. Sorry.
Okay.
Tanuja, you wanted to ask again?
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify then it can be said, like based on everything we're learning, that there are several layers of Mithya also, right?
There's several layers of Mithya.
Like manifested manifested world is one Mithya, and then everything we see is also a Mithya, the forms and names. And then our perception is also Mithya, and then our body is also Mithya.
Yeah.
So that, okay, all right, thank you.
Different Mithyas. Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
So there are many.
But all are Mithya. That's it.
Okay. Okay, so there's only, okay, got it, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Ravi?
Yeah. 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 Hey, just give me a minute. Shreya, how do I open the raise hand? I can't see everyone who's raising hands.
Participants?
Sorry? Click on the participants. I see. Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah, Sada.
Ravi, in this model of Brahman, Ishwara, and consciousness, everything here is an object or objectified. Then does time belong here? Should it belong here? Time is only a perception. Time truly doesn't exist in reality by itself, right? Yeah. So does it deserve to be seen as part of consciousness?
Because as you said, time is since you said time is perceived, right? So once something is perceived, it's an object of perception, right? Correct? So something that is perceived comes.
But it is totally imaginary, right? I mean,
which one?
Time as such doesn't truly exist. I mean, we have ascribe some sunrise and some sunset and call it time, and then try to break it up into pieces, etc. But in the visualization of Brahman or consciousness, for him there is no past, present, or future. So there is no time really,
Right.
Then does that time deserve at all to be here?
Yeah, but not everyone has got that view. People popularly take time and space to be absolute. That's why I deliberately parked time inside here to show that time is a construct of your mind.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but it was put here for learning purpose because there's a popular notion that time and space are absolute like Brahman, but it's not. It's for learning. Yeah, Tilda?
Hi, hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something about the causal body, right? So, well, is it something like when subject no longer attaches any object to it, then there is no more reason for a causal body to be there?
No.
Is it?
It's beyond that. You see, when a subject doesn't have an object, the subject is still there, But in the case of causal body, it's much more subtler than that.
So that means
causal body is the one that's responsible for the manifestation of the subtle body. In other words, it is the basis on which an individuality is formed, and a person takes himself to be a separate individual with its own mind, his own intellect, his buddhi, and his own individuality. So that the cause of that is the causal body.
So that means, let's say when somebody attains enlightenment, it's not just that there is no, subject-object divide. Because I always thought that it was like when a person is like purely in a pure subject. But what you're saying is like it's not even that.
No, you see, the person, when he attains enlightenment, that's why there's the same answer I would give for the question that Tanuja asked earlier. You see, when a person attains moksha, there is no subject-object divide because the individuality is gone totally. The self-ignorance is also wiped out because of self-knowledge. That is the state of an enlightened person. But for an ignorant person who's steeped in ignorance, even without objects to perceive, he has this notion of self-ignorance. That means he still takes himself to be an individual. That self-ignorance is still present. And as long as that remains, the causal body remains. Okay? But when that self-ignorance is there, the subtle body exists together. The causal body will cause the creation of the subtle body. And therefore, the subtle body always exists in association with the causal body, except for the time when the universe is withdrawn. Okay? And only the causal body exists. So as long as a person is ignorant of his true nature, the causal body will create a subtle body. And when a person attains enlightenment, the sanchita karma, we will look at this in greater detail in the later part of Tattva Bodha. Basically, the remaining bank account of karma is wiped clean, and that is wiped clean, and self-ignorance is gone. Then that person has got no individual identity. Then he merges back into consciousness, he's one with consciousness.
Okay.
Make sense? Huh?
Yeah.
So your assumption is right. There is no subject-object division, provided the person has attained enlightenment.
Okay.
Provided he attains enlightenment, otherwise no.
So the second part is quite related to the question earlier about, let's say, the idea that you might see your ancestors or you see people who you thought have passed on. And I was just wondering if that is just a perception where, like, we think, let's say, like somebody died like 3 years ago, for example. It's again, it's time, isn't it? That in that space there is no such thing as time, so it doesn't really matter if someone died 20 years ago or 200 years ago. Everything exists at that point. I don't know what you call that.
True. Yeah, that's why it's very hard to answer that question. And I've never had the experience of going there and seeing my ancestors and coming back. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if whether or not we're still bound by time, so we think we're just
that's also,
that.
yeah, but that's a valid point you're making also, because the time scale on the gross earth and the notion of time in the other realm is actually totally different. Yeah, you also got a point there. So, but again, we can't rule out the fact that if they are embodied in a birth, let's say that person has already been born as my grandchild, for example. Huh? My ancestor is born as my grandchild, and I pass away. That particular ancestor is still living as a grandchild on earth, right? So I'm going to go into that subtle form and I'm going to see my ancestors. This particular ancestor will be notably missing, right? I think that was Chitra's question, you know? Yeah.
Right, okay, yeah.
Okay?
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Let me ask Santa.
Okay, Ravi, actually I'm trying to look at the chart that you have drawn. Maybe you can clarify this bubble of the subtle and the gross body. Because when you said that the subtle body is beyond just the gross body, and the subtle body actually consists of the 19 components which actually makes up the subtle elements of a body. Yeah? How do you actually relate that it's more than just the gross? How does it, what happens, what's the non-gross part?
Okay, that's why I used the word pervade. That's why I said the subtle body pervades the gross body. Pervades means what? You see, the word subtle means it's something that is beyond.
Asanta, thermometer.
Okay. Mute Shakti there. Okay. So when I say that something is subtle, it means that it is beyond the range of the five senses. That's the meaning of the word subtle. When something can be perceived by the five senses, you can't call it subtle. Okay, it's not. It's called gross because you can perceive it with your senses. So subtle body means you really can't see it. Okay, so subtle. When I say subtle body pervades the gross body, means it's that which enlivens the gross body. But that does not mean that it's physically located at a particular place in the gross body. It pervades a gross body, but I can't point to a particular point that it's only here or only here. Can't say that. Because we're talking about two different things. One is the gross realm, the other is a subtle realm. But they work in concert because the subtle body is that which enables the gross body to live. Example, your breathing, which is so spontaneous, you can't control and say, oh, I forgot to breathe. You know, you can't. It's something that takes place naturally. Your digestion, you can't tell, after eating, can't tell your stomach, no, stop digesting now. You can't say that. The regulation, the circulatory system, excretory system, the enzymes, the hormones, things that are secreted, all of these things that make your body functioning in tip-top condition, all of this are not done by your conscious, by your own will. It's something that takes place. What regulates it for you as an individual? It's the subtle body. Okay? There are some interfaces where you can have some control over the subtle body, and these touch points are basically the pranayama, breath. The other is your mind. Okay? Mind and breath are places where you can, means by which you can control the aspects of the subtle body. That's why in yoga you have asana, pranayama, pratyahara, subsequently go to dhyana, you know? Because in yoga it's about developing the subtle body. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that we have the popular notion that subtle body is inside the gross body, that is something physical that is inside part of the gross body. This picture is to dispel that notion that that is not the case. In particular, you need to note that the gross body is something that is perceived by the mind. We always think that the brain and the mind is inside the gross body, is inside my head. When you say mind, we'll point to this. It's not true. Your entire gross body is perceived by the mind. Your body is an object in your mind. Your gross body is an object perceived by your mind, just as how your mind perceives the flower, your car, and your house. Your mind perceives your body just like how it perceives the other sensory objects. like your house and your car.
You mentioned something about the subtle body transmigrating and getting to experience its karma phala and soon after death. But I thought you wouldn't have to reincarnate to experience the fruits of your karma.
There are two types of experiences. In karma phala, after death, you can experience your karma phala, the fruits of your karma, be it married or demarried, be it punya or papa. There are two ways you can do it. One way is by immediate birth in another physical form on earth. I say physical form may not be human, it can be animal and so on, okay? Depending on how good or how bad it is. Physical form. The other way is by you can go to one of the lokas and undergo through certain planes of experience to exhaust the fruits of the karma phala, be it good or bad. So that's why you get the 7 higher subtle worlds and the 7 lower subtle worlds. Make sense?
Oh, I thought those 7 higher lower worlds are just different planes, like you choose to be born in.
Choose to be born in.
Now is the Bhuloka. Are those 7 upper or lower lokas that you're talking about just temporary places of being, or are they similar to reincarnations that we're experiencing now in the Bhuloka?
They are places where one can be born to undergo certain experiences for a finite timeline, after which, if necessary, as ordained by the Lord, by God, you can be born again and take on a human birth.
Yeah, Ravi, I just want to take up these ancestors again, if you don't mind. Is the ancestral relationship a relationship of gross body, or a gross and subtle body, or only subtle body?
I couldn't hear the first part. Your audio was bad.
The relationship between us and our ancestors, is it a gross body relationship, or gross and subtle, or only subtle?
The relationship with ancestors. You see, they talk about, I'm not an expert on this subject, but they talk about karmic debts, okay? That means people to whom you may owe certain things, good, bad, whatever. They call it like a karmic contract of sorts, okay? This can come about in your earthly journey, where you inadvertently may end up coming into some sort of karmic contract. This may set the seed for a future relationship. Whether it continues to stay or not depends on how you live your life. So it's not something that is there permanently, and that you're bound to a relative or set of relatives forever. It doesn't work that way. What Chitra was talking about, and what I read about those ancestors coming to greet, are mostly what we talk about is the immediate ones. Because if you talk about 500 births, you just imagine how many ancestors do you really have? So when we talk about the ones that greet us at the point of death, they normally refer to them as the immediate ones. Not the ones that are far much earlier down the line, because that one at some point your karma would have broken free. You're not forever born. This born is not a permanent born.
No,
so
yeah. Let's just take our parents. Just take parents or grandparents. Immediate. Is it a relationship of jiva to jiva? That means gross body to body relationship.
Yeah. Why? Because you see, the choice of being born in that womb is your choice. It was something that the jiva chooses to do, to be born in that particular womb. You see? So that is the relationship that comes about. And the reason why you choose to be born in that particular womb, to be the son or daughter of a particular person, there can be many, many reasons. One of which can be a karmic contract. you know. Yeah. So that is that. So you want to look at that way. It's a combination of both gross. It's actually a subtle body relationship because of karmas, but manifested as a cross body. So it's a bit of both.
Ravi, there's a comment on the chat. I think Shakti is sharing about Swamiji.
How do I read? How do I read that?
Can you click on chat? Yeah, you can just share.
Yeah.
Oh, I think she's speaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I think Ravi, when Swamiji came, we had the mantra course, and then at class at the end he asked whether we had any questions. This is a question that's always been in my mind. So I remember him saying that what happens after that, the time and space is not measured like what you mentioned. Time can, one day can actually be 100 years, distance, like, so because sometimes when one person dies, you see that person can be seen in Canada or can be seen in England, I think, because space and time is not, what's the word he said? It's not measured the way we measure it here, like what you had said. And if I do recall, he said the relationship was a subtle to subtle. I mean, I have to dig my notes, but I seem to recall that. And the reason he said that, like what you said, it's normally the immediate relatives or that died. If you look at the genogram, it's like the parents, maybe the grandparents, the siblings. But he said the reason why we do the Pitru Puja is because we don't know which of them have gone to which loka, which of them have not gone to the loka, or which of them have been reborn. So just do the prayers, because it's not in our hands to know who did it. So I think that's what I thought I recalled.
Correct, you're right, You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That's why in Pitru Puja, while we do, there are the three pindas. The first pinda will be for father. I mean, when you're doing for the father, the first one will be, if I'm doing for my dad, there'll be three pindas. The first pinda is for my grandfather. The second one will be for my great-grandfather. And the third one will be for all the others.
Correct.
Lock, stock, and barrel. It means it's a what we call wild card.
Yes, correct.
So everyone, pau galeao.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Tanuja.
I have three more questions. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you said just now, you were explaining that the mind perceives the gross body because the gross body is inside the subtle body. You mean buddhi, right?
No. Repeat that again. Say that again.
The mind perceives, just now you were explaining some.
Mind perceives gross body. Continue. But what did you say at the end? Your finishing sentence.
Yeah. Do you mean buddhi? Because there's no such thing as the mind, right? It's also mithya.
That means your body is a vritti that is perceived by you.
By the buddhi or just the whole subtle body?
Ahamkaara.
Okay. All right.
Owning up.
Okay. The second question is, you said that the only time the karna sarira exists without the subtle and causal body is when in the unmanifested state, right? What happens if someone hasn't become a jnani yet? What happens to their karma?
All of us lah. Right? That means if there's pralaya, if the universe is withdrawn, we only existing in subtle body, suddenly the Ishwara decides to call it a day and decides to bring on a catastrophe and destroy and withdraw the entire universe. The universe will go into an unmanifested state, right? All our subtle bodies will be destroyed, but our karana sarira, causal body, continues to remain in the unmanifested state. Then there is the Purana say there's a period of lull. After a period of lull, Ishwara will decide to project, manifest the universe again. And this time, the one which is in the causal bodies will manifest with the requisite subtle bodies. Or gross bodies as required.
Okay, so they don't disappear, the karma.
No. If we go and disappear, it'll be good, because I prefer that way. Then it save me the trouble of having to become a jnani. I just need to time myself to the end of pralaya, then I can disappear, you see. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, much as we would all like.
And my third question is, then what do they mean when people get married that they'll be together for 7 lifetimes? Like, how is that even?
People 1 lifetime really, they're complaining, you sure you want to stay 7 lifetimes together?
No, I
ask
don't
all the married
understand.
guys, they will not agree to that. No?
No, but I don't understand the concept. Like, why do they say you'll be together for 7 lifetimes?
7 lifetimes? Serious? My goodness.
That's what they say in the unless they're lying, I don't know.
I've not heard that. Honestly, I've not heard that. Unless in the movies they're talking about it. I don't know. Somebody else will throw some light on this matter.
Yeah, I've heard like a few pundits say it, and I've always been very confused how this is possible.
I don't know.
Today is a Vata Purnima day, right? So where, generally traditional women, they ask for husband, long life for the husband. And also just now, as she mentioned, they ask also pray for same husband for, 7 lifetimes.
Pray for same husband, no?
Yeah.
But why?
Okay. Good.
It's just, I think, Nandini here, I think it's just a kind of a catchphrase that is, Saath Saath Janam Ka Saath means that you get the same husband. It's a kind of a superstition in North India. It's not a universe. It's not.
Is it a punishment? Is it a punishment to get the same husband? Maybe.
It's not punishment. It's just a saying.
We also pray that this would be the last 7th life.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not real love, right?
No, we don't know. Okay. No, but it could be something cultural. Could be. On a more serious note, it could be something cultural that some people their married life is very blissful that they want to have the same husband for 7 different births or the same spouse.
Seems like a flawed concept, but okay, thanks.
Sorry?
Seems like a flawed concept because he's not going to be the same person in the next life. So,
true.
Yeah. Okay, that's all. It was just a general question.
Yeah, Sada? You won the 7 for 7 generations?
Ravi, I was just referring to this various sort of questions and discussions on Karana Sharira, and I thought I understood it best, or I understand it best in terms of visualizing it as basically a seed, right? In which all the qualities are forever present and waiting to manifest, at the right point of time. So maybe that's the best way of remembering this concept of Karana Sharira. So I thought I would just share that.
Very good. Good, very apt description. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So, chew on this diagram. If you still got questions after this, you can always text me separately. Okay, you can go on. So now we finished the analysis of the microcosmic analysis and the macrocosmic analysis. Now we're going to look at what is Jiva and what is Brahman. Chitra earlier asked the question, mentioned the word Jiva. So here now we look at what exactly is the Jiva, what is Brahman, what is the difference. Because I have this word Brahman here, I have this word Jiva. Okay, sorry, something else I forgot. Okay, we've got to rewind a bit, I forgot something. For those of you who have difficulty reconciling with this diagram, I would like to draw your attention. This is my last point before I move away from this slide. I forgot to say this earlier. For those of you who have difficulty reconciling with this slide, you remember the dream analogy I gave, where if I were to replace this word Brahman with, say, who's there? Kanti is there. Okay, so I put this as Kanti's dream. I replace Brahman consciousness, I put the word Kanti, and I say Kanti's dream. So this whole thing, it is Kanti's dream. Inside Kanti's dream, you'll find Kanti is the mountain, Kanti is the river, Kanti is time, Kanti is space, Kanti is the jivas that appear there. Remember I gave the example the last time? In my dream, I am the king, I am the palace, I am the tree, the inanimate objects. So if we draw that analogy here, it will help you connect to see how within consciousness there can be gross mountains, rivers, other jivas, other lokas, time and space. So to help you better connect, replace this with your name there and imagine this whole thing as a dream as a dream taking place in you. And then you flip it around And then you say, if this is Brahman, this is God, and within God's dream exists all this, then you will see it's possible why river, mountains, all of this can be consciousness, consciousness and consciousness alone. And everything is therefore nothing but consciousness and God. Just like how everything was nothing but the dream that you saw in it when you go to. Somebody had a question. Yeah, Shanti?
Are the vasanas left in the subtle body?
Yes. Yes. They are carried with you. Okay. So if you have difficulty connecting with this, use the analogy example of a dream to see how in a dream world is like. The same way you can relate to this. Okay. Let me move on. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Ravi, before we leave this diagram, what about the non-sentient world of plants and trees and things?
There, river and mountains, non-sentient. I didn't draw trees. No space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they come
also
under
inside.
non-sentient being.
Yeah. Here I can draw another circle here and put trees also. It's the same.
Okay.
Just
But trees and plants are they grow. They regenerate.
Yeah. But they have also a life form. They are also within Brahman.
Okay.
They are also consciousness. Mithya.
They're also consciousness.
Yes. It's just that they don't have the self-awareness that Jiva has.
So it's not the same as mountains and rivers.
No, mountains and rivers even more jada. They are more fully tamasic. No any degree of self-awareness. Whereas the plants have a slight degree of self-awareness in being able to respond. Animals slightly better, and the one with the highest amount of self-awareness is the Jiva, the human being.
Okay.
So it goes from inanimate to plants to animals to humans.
But they're not in the lower subtle worlds, huh?
No. Lower subtle worlds are basically worlds of experience where the subtle bodies can go to undergo certain experiences. Okay, so we go on to the next slide. Okay, which is the definition of a Jiva. What is a Jiva? So I spoke about the Ahamkara earlier. So the Ahamkara identified with the gross body and the subtle body is the Jiva. Today we are identified with our gross body and we are identified with the subtle body. Right? Subtle body we identify with our mind, our intelligence, our achievements. Remember I spoke earlier. So that is the Jiva. And why does it identify? Because it is ignorant of its true nature as Satchidananda, as consciousness. It's a problem of ignorance. Ignorance means what? Not knowing something. Avidya. It's a problem of ignorance. Okay? Just as non-apprehension of a truth, of its reality, leads to false apprehension of the gross body and the subtle body. I am ignorant of the rope, so there is non-apprehension of the rope in the dark, and this leads to a false apprehension of a snake in place of the rope. Okay? Non-apprehension arising from ignorance leads to a false apprehension of the gross body and subtle body. Okay? And therefore, the Jiva takes Brahman, Ishvara to be different from itself. As a result, it takes itself to be a limited individual being subjected to suffering, limited. It doesn't understand its essence as pure consciousness. It doesn't understand that. Okay? All arising from this ignorance. And this view is very deeply rooted through reinforcements from many past births. So that's why that's why you cannot attend a 2-hour lecture on Vedanta and immediately uproot all this. You see, it's not possible. Because this view that I am a limited individual subjected to suffering, I'm a limited individual with a gross and subtle body, strong. The identification is so very strong and so very deeply rooted through reinforcements from many past births. So it's not easy to get rid of it. Okay? Therefore, it continues to be caught in the wheel of samsara, birth and death, reincarnation. It takes place continuously. And freedom is possible through removal via self-knowledge. Why? Because this is a problem of ignorance. When you are ignorant of a subject, what do? How do you get rid of ignorance? You get rid of ignorance through knowledge. That's why here you are ignorant of yourself, so you get rid of it via self-knowledge. And that is the solution to get rid of this problem that is faced by the Jiva. Okay. Now, Brahman. So now we're talking about Brahman. Brahman is the final truth of everything, Satchidananda, pure consciousness. Brahman wields its inherent creative power, Maya. Remember, we saw this earlier. Brahma Ashraya, Maya, is inherent creative power to appear as. That's why I say Brahman manifests as the universe of objects, not create. Brahman appears as the universe of objects and beings. Again, go back to the analogy. Remember my earlier diagram? Water appearing as waves and tsunamis. Remember this one? This diagram? This diagram. So Brahman is the creation. Example in my dream is what I said earlier. In my dream, I am the king, I am the palace, I am the grass, I am the bodyguards. So Brahman is the creation. Creation is a manifestation of Brahman. Brahman did not undergo a change to become the universe. Milk undergoes a change to become curd. Brahman did not undergo this type of change to become the universe. He did not. Brahman's, as though creation of the universe is like how water appears as waves and tsunamis. This is the appropriate example. That's why we have to be careful. In the strictest technical sense, Brahman did not create the universe, but Brahman manifests, appear as the universe. So he is the creation. Brahman with his created power wielded is called Ishvara. It means when there is creation, in reference to that creation, there is a Ishvara who plays the role of creator, sustainer, and destroyer. Okay? Ishvara means he is a God with forms, with the power, which we worship, all the different God forms. Brahman is without form. So sometimes Brahman is called Nirguna Brahman, Ishvara is called Saguna Brahman. Saguna means with gunas, with attributes. Brahman, Nirguna means without attributes, which is pure consciousness alone. Okay? Ishvara is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent and omnipotent. Ishvara is Brahma Swarupa. The Swarupa of Ishvara is Brahman. It's the essence of Ishvara. Okay? So we come to the equation. So is Jiva inside Ishvara or is Ishvara inside Jiva? We tell children, in primary school, God is in your heart. So is God in your heart or you inside God? Neither. Huh? Neither. Both are wrong. Wave, is it inside water or is water inside wave? Wave is water. So Jiva is Ishvara. Their reality is one and the same. You are divinity. Okay? Doesn't mean you've got to go and teach all this to the children. You know, in your primary school, in your Bala Gurukulam, if you are teaching them that God is inside you, it's okay for now. I'm coming purely from the Vedantic standpoint to explain the concept. So don't get too alarmed and go and tell the children, no, actually God is not inside your heart. And all that. That's for teaching purpose, you can say that. Anyway, if God is everywhere, God is also in the heart. There's nothing wrong in saying that. Okay. So consciousness limited or qualified by individual names and form is the Jiva. Okay, an individual name, individual forms, your individual attributes. These we have superimposed on consciousness, and as a result, we qualify, we limit it, and we call it a Jiva of that particular name, of that particular. Again, consciousness limited, qualified by its power to create is Ishvara. So we give it a certain form called Lord Shiva, Narayana, Parvati, Devi. We limit them in a certain way. Limit as in the physical limitation, give it specific forms, specific attributes, specific powers, specific gender, male, female, whatever. And that is called Ishvara. Okay? So Shastras say what? What do Shastras say? Don't accept this ignorance-born difference. Don't accept this ignorance-born difference between Jiva and Ishvara, but go and realize your essential identity. That means your identity in essence. In essence, you are nothing but Ishvara. You are nothing but consciousness. Wave coming to realize that it is water. You are the wave. Come and realize that you are water. This is what Shastras tell us to do. And how do Shastras tell us to do it? Through what we call as the Mahavakyas. Okay? The Mahavakyas are statements that are found in Upanishads, and these tell us how one can come to see one's reality as Brahman. So like in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you have this phrase, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Chandogya Upanishad, there's another one called Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all is Brahman. Chandogya Upanishad, the famous one, Tattvamasi, is also there. Aitareya Upanishad, Prajnanam Brahma. Okay, then Mandukya Upanishad is called Ayam Atma Brahma. There are many, many more. Okay, many of these Mahavakyas. Mahavakyas are basically statements to help you to see the equation, the identity of Jiva and Ishwara. Okay. Next week, we will look at the analysis of one Mahavakya, which is this one, Tattvamasi. This is the one that Tattva Bodha takes up for analysis. Not a very in-depth analysis, just a very light touch analysis, but good enough for our purpose of understanding how Mahavakya operates to deliver that knowledge to the individual to make him see his essential reality as Brahman and not as Jiva. This is a beautiful analogy from the Mundaka Upanishad, from duality to non-duality. In Mundaka Upanishad, there is this beautiful description of a tree of life where there are two birds sitting on the tree. One bird sits here, up here. It's got a halo around it. It's calm, peaceful. It's immersed in its own happiness. It sees its oneness with everything. This is the consciousness, pure consciousness. This bird symbolizes the Jiva. Jiva, not realizing this pristine state, hops around from one branch to the another branch, tasting all these little fruits. Some fruits are sweet, some are bitter, and he goes through life's experiences as a Jiva, not realizing all the while that actually it is this bird that is always immersed in happiness and bliss. So, as long as that dualistic state exists, this bird will always be immersed in sorrow, or alternate between sorrow and happiness, because it continues to see itself as different from God. But where the non-duality happens, where it starts to see itself as one with God, that sorrow ceases. That alternating between sorrow and happiness ceases, and there is only happiness for the Jiva. So this is the beautiful analogy, a beautiful visual analogy given in the Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, I think this is my last. Sorry, I've got just to give you the So this is the Jiva is actually personified by the Ahamkara, right? Which identifies itself with everything else. Whereas this is the awareness, consciousness, witness that witnesses all that takes place, all the while remaining unaffected by what happens, always in its state of peace and bliss. Any questions?
Ravi?
Yes.
Okay, Ravi. Yeah, my question is this. So the thing is, to understand that, Jiva's nature is Brahman, Jiva's nature is Ishwara. That's fine. But we also say that Brahman is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. How is the Jiva also equated to Brahman in that case?
Omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence are features, if you analyze, are features that arise from a dualistic state. Only when there's duality, you can talk about power, omnipotence, all powerful. Only when there is there's a second entity, you can talk about omnipresence, because you can talk about space, right? Only when there is a second, you can talk about omniscience, there is knowing something else. Brahman is that one singular state of, one singular absolute state of non-duality, where there is no second entity. The objective of Vedanta is to raise the individual from the state of limitedness as a Jiva to a state of limitlessness as Brahman. Not for the Jiva to go and become Lord Shiva and do Rudra Tandavam. No. It's to start to see his oneness with creation. When you see oneness with creation, the point of omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence is no longer valid. That's why your statement not right. Brahman is not omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. It's the wrong way to say that. Ishwara is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Because Ishwara's realm is with respect to jivas, with respect to time, space, then there is the sense of omniscience, omnipresence. But there is only one singular. The question of omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence don't arise. Vedanta's objective is to move the jiva to a state of oneness where he sees the entire creation, sees everything as one, without a second. There is no need to talk at that point about omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotence over who? Over what? Over what? When everything is me, what omnipotence is there? When everything is me, what's there to know? Omniscience, what omniscience? When everything is me, where am I not? Then I need to be omnipresent. You see? So that question, that point, it's an irrelevant statement. I mean, or rather not a valid statement when you say that. So the objective is to move the jiva from a state of limitedness, limitations imposed by body, mind, sense complex, to a state of limitlessness. That is the key. That is the defining feature of enlightenment. Enlightenment it doesn't mean that you move a jiva to a state where he becomes omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. No. Be very sharp about this difference. There's a big difference there. Okay. If Shastras talk about it, then it probably could have been a case where they are just saying that raising a person to a level of godhood, But in strict technical Vedanta sense, they will never say that it's the objective of jnanam, of self-realization, is to become omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. No, they will never say that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Ravi.
Tanuja, you raise your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to know if the imagery of the lotus coming out of Lord Vishnu's navel is the same as manifestation, because I've always wondered what that symbolism meant.
Yes, manifestation. Remember before the lotus comes out of his navel, you remember the story that he will be lying on the Part Kadal, the Part Kadal it's the ocean of milk. They say milk, but actually it's an ocean where there is nothing, it's actually the unmanifested state. And the first sign of manifestation is actually the lotus coming from the navel. Yeah, so you're right. That's a symbolism of the first signs of manifestation from the unmanifested Brahman.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ravi, I think Tilda has a question.
Okay. Shreya, how do I see the chart again? Sorry, I will click on participants, is it?
Yeah. Participants.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah, Tilda.
Yeah, I think just now what you said made me think of, like, last week you mentioned this example where there was this man who had absolute love for this god, and then when he died, he asked, like, can I see this god? Can I see this god? And then there was this conversation like, oh, what do you think he will say? And in the end, the god actually told him, like, go and find out who you are.
Ramana Maha Rishi, yeah, correct. Yeah.
Is that what you mean by, you can worship and you can really love this particular god or that particular god, but ultimately you need to know that there isn't any distinction in that sense?
Yes. That was the message that was conveyed by that master, Ramana Maha Rishi, to the devotee, to another devotee. That his point was that actually the self-inquiry to discover the essence of oneself is the most basic tenet of spirituality, notwithstanding the type of form that you may worship or the particular religious practices that you may have. Yeah, that was the message.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Again, I'll send the slides again. Look at the chart. If you have problem resolving the chart, go back to the dream example again. That way you can better relate to it. Remember, these are notions and assumptions that you gain over the course of many, many births. That is why it's very important that when we start on Vedanta, you want to understand, it's not just for intellectually understanding it. Intellectually, you may understand it, you may relate to it, you may agree with it, but to assimilate it and manifest in your life, you need to overcome this deeply ingrained assumptions that are already there in your body, mind, sense complex. And that is why my earlier point, or the point that I've always been saying about having a pure and a steady mind becomes very important, because only with a pure and a steady mind can this knowledge be fused and this so-called unlearning take place smoothly. Otherwise, with a mind that's always vacillating and not focused, this knowledge will just be another piece of knowledge that sits there in your mind. So lots of sadhanas is very important while one undertakes Vedanta Vichara in one's life. I will never tire of saying this, and I will always say this, okay? It's very important that alongside Vedanta Vichara, you should also have your sadhana being undertaken. No questions? Chitra, I got a question. Yeah, Chitra. Okay, let me unmute you. Hold on.
Yeah, I've done it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we've been listening to you for over several weeks now, and some of the terms you used earlier, like ignorance, reinforcement, etc. I think there's a lot to grasp here, and every time you tell us to ask questions, there's so much, many concepts around that needs to be connected and interconnected and then assimilated. So I think the study has to continue for a long time. For people like me, for instance, I can only speak for myself, who can absorb only so much at one time. So I think it has to be an ongoing study for a long time to make all those connections. That's just a comment I have. And it came through very strongly today, because when I couldn't even use the terminology properly, you know. So I think it has to be a long course of study, even after this stops, I think.
Sure. Agree with you. And continuous. Because the problem comes when there are breaks, especially when there are lengthy breaks between the learning. So the study process, the swadhyaya, has to be continuous, regular.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, then we'll close. Swasti prajabhya paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahisha go brahmanebhya shubhamastu nityam lokas samasta sukhino bhavantu kale varshatu parjanyaha prithvi sasya shalini desho yam shobharahitah brahmanas santu nirbhayaah सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Very good session. Thank you.
See you all next week.
Thank you, Ravi.